Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'll be working on a Shimano reel. This is one of the original Calcuttas. This is a Calcutta 151. So that defines two things. It's a very narrow spool capacity and frame. So it's going to be used for inshore ocean or lake fishing. And it's also a left-handed reel. That's the one. And when I previewed the reels that have come in for service and support, well, there's a couple of requests to see the Calcutta. So we're going to go do this one. And well, we'll show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. Well, we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces. That's the nut tie-down cap and the handle nut as well. And while I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That's going to let you know when I'm posting videos. And, well, you can make a determination of whether that's a video you want to see. Today I'm working on a smaller round bait caster. Tomorrow it might be a large trolling reel, and the following day it might be a spinning reel for surf or for bassin, and maybe a low-profile bait caster comes along after that. It's one of the things about the channel is the variety. I enjoy working on these reels and sharing my experiences with you. And, well, I invite you along for the ride, and the subscription is the best way to do that. Well, we remove the handle, and there's a tension spring underneath the handle. And then this is a lefty reel, so this probably comes off turning it clockwise. It does. A good place to tell you to take pictures. So we've just removed the star adjuster, and there's two tension washers underneath that star adjuster. They control the sensitivity of the adjuster itself. Looks like there's a flat washer in here too. There is. So there's a top flat washer faced, then two tension washers. And well, when I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. That's my way of organizing so that I know where they are when it's time to put the reel back together again. Okay, we have two case screws. Those of you that work on ambassadors and the like, you know, it's kind of the same, but ambassadors use 3 case screws. So in this case, there's only 2. I guess that's to be understood. We're going to take both of those out. And now I'm never quite sure if the whole case comes off. It does, or if I needed to remove the other piece. One of the things you'll notice, you have a bushing on the spool here. I just finished an ambassador that had a bushing there. And in the back side of it, we should have a bearing in the back here. So all you need to do on the bearing, if I've tested this, but make sure that that bearing is not cranky or noisy or anything. One of the ways to do that is take a Phillips head screwdriver, center it in there, and turn it if you didn't take the time to do that before when you were testing out the reel. So while the case open, it's always a good opportunity to go in there and clean up any dirt you may have. I use a cotton swab, and this case is pretty clean. But if you had a case that well had let's say had some silt or some dirt or some film or the like, this is a good time to go in there. All right, this has got a case here. You don't need to remove it for anything, but if you did, there's a small screw that's holding that side plate in. All right, that's about all you need to do here. One of the things you can do on this is you can put a drop of oil onto where that worm gear drive is. This is an interesting reel in that the worm drive is driven from the gear side, which means when you go to cast this reel, that line guide is not going to move. I'm going to remove that right now because I want to make sure that the pole gets serviced. Sometimes you can tap that pole out. This one is one of those poles that you can generally pull out if you can't tap it out because there's a hole underneath there. There you go. And you want to remove that pole because, well, debris and silt and the like kind of fall in there. You can see that there's a good amount of that came off the shoulder. And if it's left on there, it's not going to track well inside the worm gear. That stuff is going to clog the grooves, and it's going to start running rough or skipping. All right, with that off, I can cleaned up. I can put that back in. you have big fingers like me, you may need a pliers. I'll probably go to a pliers in a moment if I can't get this back in quickly. There we go. Well, that's in. And once you put that in, you're going to see that's riding high. That's not the way it's supposed to ride. So put pressure on that, turn the worm gear, and it should fall down into place. Still not quite there. There we go. So it needs to be inside that cavity. And then you saw me initially take out a little washer here that's got a hole in it. That washer. That needs to go back onto the pawl. That's a little spacer washer. So that pawl is going to turn left and right as it makes its rotations on that worm gear. That washer just helps it to turn a little bit more easily. And you can also put a drop of oil in there. Okay, when you go to reinstall that main cap, understand that there's some points on this cap here. You can see them. Kind of looks like a chess piece, like a rook or a castle, if you will. Don't over tighten this, because if you start snapping those caps off, those little points, well, it's not going to work right. And actually, somebody has snapped one off there already in one of their services. So just be careful about that. Don't over tighten it. And then just turn it, make sure that it operates okay once you're done. All right, let's go over to the gear side then. We'll show you what's going on with the gears and how to service those. This is a pretty dependable design. The design does differ a little bit between Shimano's Calcutta models. And don't think that all of the parts are interchangeable. They're not. But the designs are within the family. You'll know that you're working on a Calcutta, whether it's a 400 or 151 or whatever. The design is not that different. One of the things that is different, I'll point it out in just a moment, you'll notice when you're looking at that anti-reverse clutch in the case here that you're seeing the bright blue plastic. And on the back side of it, you're seeing the metal. That's because it's a left-handed reel. And you need to pay attention to how that clutch is set up in the reel that you're servicing. If you flip that around, it won't work. Now, that'll actually work. You'll go to turn the reel, and you won't be able to turn the reel because the clutch is set up that way. All right, I've removed the spacer sleeve. There's two shoulders on that. They're going to go in the slots on that top piece of the main gear. Next, I'm going to remove the two springs that are the yoke springs. Put those off to the side for a moment. This one's always hard to get off. I don't know why, but there's like a little bit of a snap there. Of course, it made a liar out of me. In that case, it wasn't that hard at all, was it? It looks like these washers have been replaced. But I want to get down here and show you all of this. So this is your click ratchet. When this reel releases from free spool, this arm here is going to drive down. And when it drives down, it's going to intersect with this click ratchet, and when you spin the ratchet, it's going to pop it back up. Well, I wanted to get to that point. You don't need to remove anything else in this reel. You do need to make sure it's clean. It's just all plastic, so you don't necessarily need to even oil it because they're kind of self-lubricating. If you needed, of course, if you had a broken arm or a broken spring or something like that, of course you want to remove the pieces and parts, but in this case everything checks out nicely. And this is the gear that's going to drive your line guide, your worm gear to the line guide. Everything's working fine here. There's just a bushing in the back here, not a bearing, but if you needed to remove it, pop off this E-clip, pull it through and do that. You can actually put a little bit of oil in through that E-clip here. That'll help it to some extent. Okay, that's the inside of your workings here. So let's take a moment here to just kind of reassemble. We'll get over to that drag washer set and we'll finish up this reel. Remember what we said about how that has to be. You put it on this way, it's not going to click. So you needed to take a picture when it started to make sure that you have it lined up properly. We have the main gear washer goes next. And let's pop out the main gear. We have a single washer here. So this does not have a lot of max drag in this reel. We have the top washer and the bottom washer. These are in good condition. These have been replaced in the near term, and these are carbon tex. You do not need to oil or grease those. If you want to, you could, that's your option, put a little bit of grease on there and wipe it off so that you can still see the grid on that, or cross hatching on that washer. But again, it's not necessary. All right, good amount of grease onto the main gear. And before I put that on, I want to get back to the pinion gear. There's two sides on the yoke. There's a side that has a slanted or a angular piece that's going to face inward. There's two sides on the pinion gear. There's a slotted side and there's a full-size gearing. The slotted side is going to face in to accept the spool and be able to turn that. This is your spool, and you can see that we have a rod coming through here, a pin, and that's actually what this is going to grab when it goes to turn it. So it'll interlock like that, and it'll be able to turn the spool. So that faces in. So in on that side, in on this side. And we can put that over the slots on the reel. And you need to make sure that just have to reset that there. For whatever reason, I came off the one post. All right, just be patient. And as a wise old person told me at one point, have a sense of humor when you're doing this stuff. Main gear goes back on. This is the one that has the two indentations on it for your sleeve. So when you put the sleeve on, and you need to put the sleeve on before you reassemble the reel, make sure that you're embedded into those slots and that you're solid on the bottom here. If you're out of skew like this, if you have the gap, you won't have an effective system. Okay, all we need on this side before we reinstall then is the two yoke springs. One goes on each of those posts. And then we can take the main gear, the side plate gear side plate. Notice that this is clean, it's not greased, and it shouldn't be greased. And that the metal ring on the left-hand sided reel is down, the plastic ring is up. If you're working on a 400 or an even one, the 200 or whatever, you're going to find that the metal ring is upside here and that plastic side is facing down. It's a one-way clutch. Okay, we can take this and put this on now. One of the things that happens, these two screws generally get tangled. So just be careful as you're resetting this. They get tangled in this case here. They get banged up on these side plates for some reason. So just make sure that as you do this, that you have a nice tight fit, that these are free, and that your two screw holes here are sitting nice and tight. All right, this is always fun. Small screws don't play well. Well, if you have a question on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one and you want to know a little bit more about the reel, maybe you consider buying one, maybe you just want to learn a little bit more about the reel, leave them in the comments section, and I'll try to answer those questions for you. And well, if I don't know the answer, I will certainly tell you I don't know the answer, but sometimes it's as simple as where do I get parts for this reel, and so on. And well, I'll try to help you out with that. Okay, got the second one going in now. We're just about ready for the reassemble. So we've just taken it apart. We've inspected all the pieces and parts. We lubed those that we can, including the bearing in the backside here. I'm going to reinstall the spool now. And one of the things you need to know when you go to put this one back together again is that you need to trip that anti-reverse load. You need to pull it all the way down, like that, or up in that case. I guess it's down when we go to this side, so that you don't jam the button when you go to install. When you go to install, you pull the button all the way up, like that. So this needs to be at the top. Trip lever needs to be at the bottom. It makes the install very easy. And then we can just put the case on, line up the screw holes, and you should have a nice tight seam. I think what's happening is probably running into that. A nice tight seam here, where you can then, I'm not sure I'm in. Okay, there we go. Nice tight seam. What was happening was I was getting caught up with one of these screws that we were just cautioning you about in terms of how to make sure that you don't get caught up on them. Only justice, right? All right. Next up, we want to take the two bent washers. Those are tension washers for the star adjuster. I like to put the first bend facing up, the second one facing down. Then there's a flat washer that goes next. Then we can put our star adjuster on. Now this is a left-handed reel, so it turns in reverse. So we'll go counterclockwise to tighten it rather than to loosen it. I'm holding the spool here as I do this. That will enable me to turn that without turning the gear post. I want to take the handle tensioner next. And this handle's got a lot of dirt and debris and junk on there, so I'm going to just take a moment here to see if we can't clean that up a little bit. I'm going to just use a, well, this one's been around a long time, Purple Power. It's a degreaser. I'm going to take the steel wool, and that will generally loosen and pull off a lot of that grime. Won't get it all, but it'll get enough of it. And then kind of rub it along the edges there, see if you can't get that off as well. So folks ask, how frequently should they tune up the reels? And my answer is annually. We just had an example of that. A fellow sent in a reel, and he said, geez, I didn't use it much this year. I only used it a few times. How was it? And I said it was completely dry and without greases and oil. And he said, well, how can that happen? Well, it happens because those reels are generally fishing in heat, or they're stored in hot places, and the grease and the oils, well, they evaporate. And if they evaporate, well, the reel starts making noises that it wasn't intended to make. And you can ruin a reel even though you're only fishing it a few times. So on an annual basis, you have a chance to go in there, to observe, to check to make sure all of those pieces and parts are still as designed, that there are no broken pieces. And of course, there's consumables in that make it easier, right, to wear, things like drag washers and that. In this case, this reel has got drag washers that were already replaced. But on an annual basis for, what are we doing here, 15, 20 minutes maybe? Whatever it takes to do that service is well worth it in terms of providing you worry-free fishing. All right, when you get the point facing that hole, or if you get the flat perpendicular to it, generally that tie-down cap is going to sit right in there and align that spool, the handle hole with this screw, and well, you should be good. So what did we do? Took the reel apart completely, serviced the pawl, so showed you how to service the drags, oiled the bearing in the back here, cleaned the inside of the case, re-lubed the gears, and reassembled it. So time to give it a check. So it spins nice and free and easy, which is what I would expect from a Shimano reel. I want to make sure that we have that drag all the way down. Make sure that when you flip your spool, you get the release. We do. You have an adjuster here. If you want it to spin faster, well, loosen it up a little bit. If you want it to spin slower, tighten it up. This is what we were mentioning about the free spool. Since it's driven from the gear side and it's in free spool, your line guide is not going to turn. So we'll turn the spool and you'll see that line guide does not move. When you go to cast a reel like this, what you want to do is you want to bring the line guide right to the center before you cast. Reason for that is it's got less travel on both sides to get through that hole, and you're going to be able to throw it further than if you went to cast the reel and it was all the way over to one side like that, because the line here is going to, well, you can see it's going to go this way and then it's going to go out the other way to the line guide. It's kind of diverting its course. It will slow down the line speed, and it will result in lesser of a cast. All right, well, this one's operating just the way it should now, and that's what it takes to tune up a Calcutta 151 by Shimano. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for your dedication to task and service and keeping us safe. To everyone, enjoy the art of reel repair. If you have one of the reels, now's the time to tune it up before the season gets busy. And, well, if you have the questions, ask them. If you like the videos, please subscribe. And have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.